Thank you. Am I working? Yeah, okay. Great, thank you. I'm especially privileged to be here today. I'm talking in my native tongue of English, and I'm talking about a topic that is super close to my heart and my well-being at work. Imagine a workplace where every employee can thrive in their career, and when a life event happens, they can ask themselves, who or what will help me in this moment in time? And when they think of the answer, they know they can ask for what they need at work without fear of repercussion and without the sense that they've got to choose between their career and that life event. And that's essentially our definition. Oh, am I going to do what Dr. David did? Yep. That's essentially what our definition is of well-being at work in thriving talent. When you ask yourself that question, who or what can help me? It's these enabling policies, processes, resources, trainings, and fundamental leadership behaviours that's going to give you that answer. Can I have a career? And can I honour all parts of myself which involve caring? So I'm going to bring it to life to you. The answer to this, how do you create these workplace cultures, is adopting an equality, diversity and inclusion strategy called Caring and Career. I would like you in the audience to stand up only if you have a duty of care towards an aging parent who doesn't live in the same country that you reside in. So please stand up if you have a duty of care to an aging parent who doesn't live in the country you live in. Thank you. Could you also hold your positions? Could you also stand up if you have an aging parent with a duty of care who actually lives in the same country as you do? Okay, again, stay standing. Could you please stand up if you have a child or children of all ages and abilities and grandchildren who, again, you have a duty of care for? Please stand up. If you were already stood up, could you please put one arm in the air? Okay. Hold your positions for me, please. Could you add a limb or stand up if you have, you believe self-care is a really important part of your well-being at work? Okay. Okay, and hold your positions. Just look around if you can. Look around and see. Okay, so hold your position, and you can always do a star jump if you also feel you have a duty of care in the community, and in some shape or form, you contribute to the community. Anyone do that too? Okay. You may take your seats. That's your post-lunch Energiser. It doesn't stay there. There is a purpose behind that. For the first time in history, we have 5 generations in our workplaces. That is a lot of life events that we are navigating between us. And all these life events will affect us in different ways. And it came up earlier with Dr. David. I don't know if he's still in the audience. Hi, Dr. David. The swan, or indeed the flock of swans, because most of the time we will have no idea what life event we're all navigating at that moment in time. So the point behind the exercise is also that when you're thinking, as you know, of an ED&I strategy, the first question we need to be asking ourselves is, can everybody see themselves in that strategy? And the gift of caring and career is every single person in your organization can see themselves in caring career. You saw that yourself. We didn't even ask the questions around, do you care for pets? Do you care for people in your team? We all have caring in our worlds. This morning, the question came up, how are you? How often do you really ask that question with deep curiosity? And how often do you answer it and think of all of these dimensions? And do that kind of scan Again, knowing that depending on what life event is happening in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, this will change. And there's another dimension that we're going to come to. But to get there, the question that came up this morning, and again, Sarah has some brilliant facts on this, and Dr. David too, is that ultimately you're going to stay in your organization if you are surrounded by those empathetic and caring leaders. Otherwise, you will leave. And you have to have those enabling policies. Now, there's one more dimension, and that is the beauty of Switzerland. When I moved here 15 years ago, it was due to a life event. My husband had an opportunity to come here for 2 years. I was at IBM at the time. I had a long career there as a change and project manager. And IBM said, don't resign, just take a 2-year sabbatical. Fantastic. So, of course, I came to Switzerland with a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I spent most of my time in the park. And I met a lot of women in the park during work hours. And I thought, okay, we can't all be on sabbaticals. What's going on? And I got curious. And what I learnt was that in Switzerland, as much as it's an absolutely brilliant all-year-round playground, it's really difficult. Especially then, 15 years ago, there was no such thing as paternity leave as a start. To be a leader, you had to work over 100%. Flexible working wasn't really an option. Sometimes it was a PR stunt on a website. It wasn't really an option. Creche Kita, so for babies, really expensive, quite hard to find a place. And schools, especially those days, there wasn't a lunch system typically. So you'd be doing your 4 times a day to do the school run. Okay? Wednesday, there wasn't school. And a quarter of our population are foreign. So when those life events happen, you don't have your immediate, really close family or friends around you. You really are isolated and on your own. And it's really important to be aware of that dimension when we're talking about how do we have well-being at work, and especially in Switzerland. Sarah, where's Sarah in the audience? Is she still here? Oh, she's gone. Okay, so this morning, for those of you here this morning, she has some brilliant data, and if you weren't here this morning, look up her data. There's a huge business case, and the great thing is a lot of the work that's happening in the workplace today, and the providers out, with their stools, there's so much more data. The business case behind caring and career is absolutely watertight. It is brilliant. And you can ask this conversation to any CEO or CFO or board. You ask them about what are the moments that matter in their life and how they're navigating them, and how are their children navigating them. Because the first thing is that attrition, the visible attrition, it starts reducing. We see higher levels of engagement and retention when you start putting in these enabling policies and practices. The invisible attrition, which historically was actually very hard to measure, the great news is, listening to some of the conversations this morning, it's getting easier to measure. When you factor that in, that cost of invisible attrition, when people are opted out because of what we make up about caring and career, or whether they're opted in, is huge. Whether we like it or not, when we're talking about ED&I, we're always going to talk about gender. We're still 130 years away, according to the forum. So we're still going to talk about that. And you know more than any people in this room that as soon as you start putting in enabling policies to overcome the biggest obstacle of advancing women, which is caring, you'll start to see the difference in terms of that your leaky pipeline stops leaking. I don't know, for those of you who were able to be work in organizations where you could navigate those moments. When I was at IBM and I fell pregnant, bear in mind Olivia's now 18, so it was a while ago, I wasn't nervous to tell my manager my news. I wasn't nervous that my career was over. I saw plenty of role models in IBM who had fulfilling careers. I didn't think it was career suicide when I said, listen, I've not done this mum thing before. All I do know is I can't work on client sites Monday to Thursday. That's okay. I'm going to work from the office locally or from home. And when I said I want to work at 60%, I didn't think my career was over. I wasn't opted out, and I didn't feel like I needed to opt out. So the loyalty you feel when you work for an organization who helps you navigate a moment in time you never get again, is huge. And then money talks. When you look at the costs associated with this, reducing the operational costs, they all stack up. We know when we're replacing people, it can be up to 2 to 4 times. So the amount of business cases we must have done to increase parental leave in Switzerland are significant. And every time people say, we're going to convince the CFO, we always convince the CFO. And it's not due to magic, it's down to pure data, to facts. And we're actually really lucky, because now, if you look at a lot of organizations, I'm sure many of yours, they put themselves forward for awards, Great Place to Work, the Bloomberg Index. If you go on the Bloomberg Index and you answer the inclusive leadership section, 90% of the questions are around caring. Okay? Great Place to Work. And then finally, CSRD. We may be in Switzerland, so we're not in the EU. We're still going to be impacted by the actual social regulations and S1 and S2 to start saying, how do we transparently treat our workers in our organization, in the value chain? So suddenly the business case is absolutely watertight. When you're going to your CEOs and your senior leadership teams and you're putting forward caring career, you've got a watertight business case behind you. What do you need to bring this to life? You need 4 pillars, and each of them on their own will not work. So what I mean by that, and it might be hard to see, I don't know. So you have to have an intersectionality between these pillars. I'm going to bring in Novartis because Alex is here. So when Novartis shook the trees about 4 years ago, they increased their secondary care leave, their parental leave, paternity, to 18 weeks. And my goodness, it made some noise in Switzerland. And the first thing I said was, OK, that is absolutely brilliant, Novartis. And how are you going to make sure that every single man takes up that policy? And what I loved is the 18-month project that wrapped around that policy change. The wraparound was training and coaching. All managers were equipped with what is their significant role to maximize the uptake. All of the parents in Novartis, all the associates can get access to e-learning to actually help them navigate all the different phases of being a parent. The senior leadership team, each senior leader in the country had to be nominated to be a change ambassador. And then they had change agents around them. So it was true intersectionality across all of these 4 pillars that made it stick. And today they still track that uptake. Another example is Gavi in Geneva, the Global Alliance of Vaccinations. They have a global mobility clause. They doubled it. What did it mean? Well, one example is a leader from South America. It meant he could go back twice in 12 months to be with his parents, not in holiday mode. He could go back and work and just see the rhythm of his mum and dad. And when he watched their rhythm, he thought, this is what I could be doing to help them from far, far away. He lives in Geneva. And that meant the world to him that he could do that, especially within 12 months his father passed away. And again, what made it easy? The process to apply for your global mobility clause in Gavi is just a form. It's not a 30-page document. His leader just said, of course you go, Rika. There wasn't a question of it. There wasn't a question of, well, are you really committed to work if you go? The final example I'll give you is resources. Many of us in Switzerland, especially, you all have ERGs, employee resource groups, in your organizations. And they're fantastic. They're resources fueled by passionate change makers. They're there for a reason. They're there to hear challenges and to hear needs. And again, if you don't act on those challenges and needs, and you don't have the right training in place, so that when people are still being subject to microaggressions in the workplace and disrespectful behavior, if those groups aren't seeing, actually, I can come to work and be my authentic self, and that is what well-being at work means to me, then we're not making a difference. So the beauty of this is you can use this as your checklist, and you can think, first of all, actually, here's a framework called Caring Career. What are we doing today? You will be doing things already on that list. Make sure you remind yourselves and all your employees what they have, all those benefits and resources, you'll have them. Equally, look at that list and think, okay, what are some of the, oh, sorry, Thierry, haven't got to you yet. Oh, panic. Sorry, Terry. He'll be great. He comes on next. When you're thinking about the checklist, think about what are some of the other levers you can start doing, the low-hanging fruit. You know, an insurance company in Switzerland, only a few years ago, we were talking about parental piece, and they're like, we don't have a breastfeeding room, we have a first aid room. I was like, it's not difficult, let's put a breastfeeding room in place. Yeah, so there's lots of things you can do, and you can build a roadmap. None of our jobs are easy. When you're trying to drive this agenda, it takes a lot of tenacity, it takes a lot of passion, it takes a lot of care. And we are so, so lucky that we're in a position where 5, 10 years from now, we'll be able to look back and we'll be able to say we actually changed workplace cultures. We enable people, our kids, our families, our friends, to be able to choose that life moment and their career. And we all had a role to play in it. And I think that's a real gift. So thank you for listening, and join the Caring Career movement. Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Wonderful.